Well, I was diagnosed with not HIV, but full-blown AIDS 10 years ago. When I was diagnosed, it was a complete shock to me because I had tested regularly and my responses were always negative. So when I was diagnosed with full-blown AIDS and just having 95 T cells, you can imagine the shock. And I was diagnosed with AIDS at the time that I was literally pastoring. So here I am, shouldn't have it, and pastoring a church about to open up a second one. So you can imagine the shock. And my first response was to hide it, because at that time I was hosting a local television show. I had a choral group that had gained international fame, and it just wasn't the kind of thing you'd want to tell somebody you have full-blown AIDS and you're a pastor. But I decided I wouldn't hide it. From that, I started not only speaking, but I started ministering, if you would call it that, to inmates who were in jail, who were exiting the prison system that had AIDS. And I began to help them to steer them to the medical services that they needed, help them with housing, transportation, and counseling. And how I really got into that was one Sunday I was at church and I asked everyone, how many of you know someone in prison? And the whole congregation raised their hand, and I was like, oh my God. And I've since traveled and asked the same question in numerous congregations, and it's always at least 95% of the people raise their hands. And so I share with the congregations that HIV in prison is something like 13% higher than it is out here, because it's what's called a quarantine situation. The inmates can't go in and out freely as we can move and go freely, and so the virus is just rampant in prison. And so I began to establish a ministry in our church, which is called, we took the acronym HIV and we turned it into Heaven's Invitation to Victory. And we began to teach people that HIV wasn't a death sentence. And my own life proved it, because you must understand that when I was diagnosed, I didn't just have AIDS. I was diagnosed with shingles. I was diagnosed with pneumocystis pneumonia. I was literally dying. So to bounce back after that was proof that you can not die, you can live. First of all, I'm a certified AIDS counselor, and I started out working for an agency that had no budget. My budget was my salary, and I didn't know what I was going to do to provide services for people. So I learned from that job how to use other people's money, how to use other people's resources. And when I established my churches, I just kept doing it. I had already been in contact with those people. I have a good rapport with pastors in my city now, and I have the opportunity to go and share with them, because I'm asked to preach, which is really a loaded thing. They don't realize it, because what's coming out of my mouth is HIV in their pulpit, something they will not say, but it's too late because I'm there already and they can't stop me. So I utilize once, and then it never fails that after I do speak at that church or wherever I'm at, someone approaches me every single time. Someone's plural after that service saying, my son's HIV, my granddaughter's, my brother's, my husband. Will you help us? Every time. It's been grieving me. I love people. I love young people. And the Love Won't Let Me Be Silent is actually written for basically that age group that you're talking about. But to see so many of our young men and women, Latino and Hispanic, perishing from this virus because of the silence of the church, because of the ministers' inability to effectively know how to discuss this with their congregation so that they can stay within the parameters is what makes them feel comfortable, yet still save lives.